Ladies and gentlemen, this is internet personality Vangelus, and it's time to round off the Wave 1 Deluxes with the lone Decepticon of the bunch, and the first Stunticon of the line, Dragstrip. Apparently he ended up in Wave 1 instead of Air Raid due to tooling organization on the production end, according to an interview with Jerry Javoyne at Toy Fair 2015. And so, he's been rather cruelly appropriated by Silverbolt and Optimus Prime in the meantime, waiting to be saved by his comrades come Wave 2. Dragstrip is just a regular old IndyCar now, no longer the six-wheeled supercar of the 80s, but he's also got all the right colors, bringing bigger and thicker doses of maroon over his warm yellow chassis. I wish the spoiler was a bit larger, but aside from looking a little huge due to the open cockpit, Dragstrip's a great deluxe car. Lovely silver hubcaps abound, and the underside is even smooth and not entirely obviously a robot. The hand-foot gun can store on a dedicated peg connection at the topmost point of Dragstrip's car mode, throwing back a little to the original G1 toy. The melee weapon can store on one of the side or rearward peg holes, and never looks any good due to its canted connector. Oh well. I've said simple and fun a whole lot talking about the Combiner Wars figures, but man, Dragstrip takes it to another new level. His legs just slide out. Bang! The most complicated motion on the entire toy is the neat touch of the front of his car pulling a 180 spin before pegging into place as his backpack. Dragstrip absolutely does not waste any time. And yet, his robot mode looks fantastically realized. It's got a solid silhouette and looks like a robot first and foremost, rather than a standing bricky car biped. This take on Dragstrip does have a backpack rather than a chest plate, but I think it works pretty well. And his head sculpt is delicious, from its pale blue cyber skin tone to his spooky red visor with friggin' Kamen Rider bloody teardrops. He drips with character in his visual aesthetic alone. Dragstrip also wears his chest-installed combiner port pretty well as a piece of detailing, and between his sweeping bell-bottom sleeves and his tire-beefed spoiler-footed legs, his use of mass is spot on. For weaponry, Dragstrip's got a double-barreled hand-foot gun and a sword. Both are done in proper menace or purple and work decently. The hand-foot gun can also plug into one of Dragstrip's shoulders as a sorta shield thingy. The sword has got a second peg for storing it in places, but that peg is slanted for no reason I can discern, which renders it kinda useless. I don't get what happened here, folks. I thought it would be for a combined weapon or something, but that does not seem to be the case. Going into arm mode, Dragstrip has a couple slits near his kidneys that allow his shoulder chunks to slot into place. This means that a rather deliberate and interesting bicep mass is created for whoever shoves him onto one of their upper combination ports. I like it. His shins make for a cool forearm silhouette as well. Thanks to his transformation, you can slide the forearm up to hide Dragstrip's thighs and nullify most of the articulation. I don't think this does anything useful whatsoever, but making the Combiner Wars toys take on some of the lesser aspects of the G1 original seems to be in vogue, so there you go. Dragstrip's leg mode is literally his car mode, but modified, so I'm starting from there. The main thing to note here is that you can flip up a slice of the bottom of the leg to shorten it, and thus make it the same length as all the other Combiner Wars leg modes so far. This is kind of important, as otherwise, anybody wearing Dragstrip down below with most anyone else would have a case of the bandy legs. Okay, Stunticon limbs. This is gonna be a whole new world. Those three aerial bots was all kind of samey here and there, but things are gonna get fresh with the Stunticons. Dragstrip has a ball socket jointed neck with a little bit of up and down, a little bit of side to side waggle, and of course rotation. A whole lot like the aerial bots, actually. His shoulders are on ball socket joints with cuts in the top so they can go all the way out to the side like this, and then due to the transformation there is a bit of a secondary axis so you can kind of get him to maybe cross his arms a little bit, or I don't know, cup his groin. His biceps are on mushroom peg swivels. His elbows are simple, super just like non-detented, entirely friction hinges. Whole lot like Skydive, really. His wrists do bring wrist poseability to the Combiner Wars Deluxes in that they can do that. And that's not a point of articulation, that's a transformation joint, but people still like to pretend. His waist is slightly more centered, actually, than the aerial bots. I think that the post that goes up into his torso is actually right dead centered, because the front of the crotch isn't getting all weird and on a separate axis. His ball socket hips have got about a 98% Van Damme factor. His thigh swivels are mushroom pegs, and they work fine, and on a thin, well, not thin, but a thinner thigh than some of the aerial bots, that's still good to see. knee joint is the full 88 degrees. And this guy's legs don't open up, so that's all you're getting. You can't mangle his leg to futz some pointless articulation out of that area. And his feet don't move, but they can do that. That's not a point of articulation, but I suppose if he's walking, that can actually help smooth out a pose a little bit, because as you see, that foot's bent forward. So you know what, it is, I'm going to call that a point of articulation, considering how much I tend to mistreat transformation joints that happen to be where parts of the human body move. So Dragstrip is basically as posable as the aerial bots, and I think this is really setting the precedent. The Combiner Wars limbs have got a very decent basic set of articulation. Every now and then they're missing something like wrists or ankles, but all the core elements and what I would call the modern core elements, not your classic Kenner core elements, are there. And if this guy is indicative, along with the aerial bots, of what we're going to see out of basically every Combiner limb, plus or minus 1 or 2 points, I'm super happy. Oh, I didn't do this for the other 2 aerial bots, so now you're all uncomfortable, aren't you? Dragstrip's a solid transformer, brought down only by a lack of smooth integration of his sword accessory into any mode where he's not just, like, holding it as a sword. Both of his modes look good. The transformation's the fun kind of a breeze. He makes for a good Combiner Wars limb in either orientation, and is frankly a nice little breath of fresh air from all the jet planes in the first wave of this gestalty new generation's line. Setting aside my biases for the Superion team on the whole, it could easily be argued that Dragstrip's one of the best figures of Wave 1. It's just that he's the only Stunticon, which makes him feel a little left out. Once the rest of the team shows up in Wave 2, I am quite sure that feeling will change. He's well worth your time, unless you just don't like something about his face. You terrible, prejudiced person. Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Vangelus, and I want to know the story of Dragstrip's new optics. Did he get punched real hard in the eyeballs? Does he just drive so fast he cried blood through his cheeks? Is he simply a common rider? Let your imaginations flow, ladies and gentlemen, like the bloody tears down his face.